Welcome back. In the previous steps, we were focused on retrieving the details of the student and his courses. So we were using the many-to-many relationship which was defined between the student and the course to retrieve the details back. In this step, let's shift our attention to creating a new course and a student and defining the relationship between them using JPA. So what I'm doing is I'm going to the student repository. Let's create a hard-coded method for now. So what I'll do is I'll say public void insert student and course. We'll also insert the relationship between the student and the course. So first let's create the student. So student is equal to new student of, let's say, Jack. So we have created a new student. After the student, what we need to do? We need to create a course. Course is equal to new course. I'll give the name to this course, microservices in 100 steps. Now we have a student, we have a course, so we can go ahead and persist them using the entity manager. So how do we do that? Entity manager dot persist student and entity manager dot persist course. So this would persist the student and this would also persist the course. Now, how do I persist the relationship between the student and the course? How do we do that? That's done by adding the course to the student dot course, and the reverse as well, course dot add student. So we are establishing the relationship between student and course on both these sides, and then I can persist the owning side. The owning side we have defined is student. Let's see what would happen when I fire this off. I'm calling the insert student on course. Where do we call it from? Let's call it from the command line runner, the demo application. The run method is the best place for us. So do we have a student repository here? Yep, we do have a student repository. So let's comment the stuff which is already in here. I don't want to do all this stuff right now. So all that I'm interested in is student repository dot insert student and course. For now we are hard coding the values. So we can also say insert hard coded student and course. Right click, refactor, rename. Let's stop and start the application again and see what would happen. The application has started fine. I'll copy the query and keep it and refresh the H2 console, connect and do a run. Now, what do we see? We see a new student, Jack, who's created associated with the course microservices in 100 steps. That's cool, right? So we have a student, his ID is 1, the course ID is 2, and we have an relationship established between the student and the course. So if you query the student course table, so if I do select star from student course, you'd see a entry for this relationship as well. So run selected, and you'd see that student ID 1 is associated with course ID 2. That's cool. Let's now see what's happening step by step in here. Let's execute this in debug mode. I'll kill this and I would put a breakpoint inside our method. So let's put a breakpoint here and let's debug demo application. Let's see what's happening step by step, what queries are getting fired and what's happening behind the doors. Okay, we are ready. So I'll go to the console, clear it out. I'll say function F6 to execute this new student. Nothing will happen in the background. New course, nothing will happen. In em.persist student. So when we try to persist the student, what would happen is a ID will be assigned to this student. So what happened is ID is got and the student gets an ID. So ID, what ID does student get? Student gets an ID of 1. So all the details of student are now set. Again, course gets an ID, course gets an ID of what? Course gets an ID of 2. Now I'm saying student.add course, so student gets added to the course. Let's function F6. function f6, and now we are trying to persist the student. Nothing would happen, and when I actually fire the whole thing out, so when I complete the execution now, so let's say function f6 here and press function f7 to get out of the whole thing and complete the execution, you would see that's when the actual inserts get fired. So at the end of the transaction, the student is inserted, the course is inserted, and the relationship between the student and course is being inserted. Hibernate waits until you are ready to close the transaction, until the last point in a transaction before executing all the updates on the database. So it waits until the last point, and then it's inserting the student, inserting the course, and also inserting the relationship between the student and the course. And that's how we establish the relationship between student and course in JPA. What we'll do is now we'll try and remove the hard-coded stuff. I'll copy this method. I'll leave the hard-coded method in here. I'll just say insert student and course. And I would get the student details as the input because we would need the details of the student for as an input, and course details also. So student comma course, and over here I don't need the student details because the student details will come from the calling method, course details as well. So all that we need to do is persist them and add the course, add the student. One of the things which we can also do is something of this kind. So this would help us just call the persist twice. So I'm saying student.add course, course.add student. I'm persisting the student and then the course. Instead of the other method, let's try calling this. I'll go to the demo application and I'll comment this out, and I'll say student repository dot insert student and course, and I'll say new student. Let's give the name a little later, and new course. What's the name of the student that we would want? It's Jack, and the course we would want to insert him into is microservices in 100 steps. You can start the application now, and you'd see that at the end of the startup of the application, the student and the course would be created. Application has started up. I'll go to the H2 console. I'll grab the query, refresh it, connect, and run the same query again. And you can see that Jack is now being inserted in. So Jack is associated with the course microservices in 100 steps. In the student repository, we have created a method to insert both student and course. But there are scenarios where you would want to add a course to a student or add a student to a course. I would recommend you to try those methods as an exercise. So try creating methods to be able to do that and see what you can do with them. Until the next step, bye-bye.